possible, but I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all members of the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny panel, other members of the Council and officers in attendance at today's meeting, and welcome to Paul Sherry as well. I'd like to welcome members of the public and the press who may be watching the meeting live on YouTube. I'm Councillor Alexis McAvoy, Chairman of the panel. Please note this meeting is being broadcast live and will be available for repeated viewing. Please could all councillors follow the Council's ground rules for virtual meetings, which have been well circulated. In particular, please use the conversation panel to indicate any request to speak, and only speak when invited to do so by me as the Chairman. I will be taking recommendations by consensus at this meeting, but if a vote is required on a particular item, I will call each panel member to vote in turn. In the event of any technical problems, there will be a short adjournment to establish if the fault can be addressed. Please bear with us in these circumstances. If any individual loses connection and the meeting can practically continue with a quorum, it will do so. For the benefit of all participants and those viewing the meeting, I will now call the name of each panel member and ask them to identify themselves as being in attendance at the meeting. As I previously mentioned, I am Councillor Alexis McAvoy, Chairman of the panel. So I'd now like to go down the list of members. Councillor Alan Alvey.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Fran Carpenter.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Keith Craze.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Sandra Delamere. Councillor Delamere? Are you there? I'll come back and check you at the end in case there's a problem. Councillor Mahmood Kangarani.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Martin Levitt.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Alan O'Sullivan.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Beverly Thorne.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Derek Tipp.
Present, Chairman.
Just go back and check. Is Councillor Sandra Delamere there? So just checking the panel if I can see her. Oh, well, she's in the panel. Can you not hear us, Councillor Delamere? Okay, so I'll leave that for the moment then, Andy, and then she can come in when she gets there. But her name is in the attendance panel. Okay, other members of the council in attendance will be recorded in the minutes of this meeting. So first of all, apologies. There are none that I'm aware of. Are there any, Andy? No. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do panels have any declarations of any pecuniary or any other interests in respect of the business for this meeting? Could you please use the RTS, and I will then ask each member to individually speak. I can't see anybody declaring anything in the box.
Chairman, you missed the minutes of the last meeting.
Did I? Testing. Apologies. So, item 1, yes, minutes. Can we agree the minutes of the meeting on the 24th of September?
Agreed.
Good.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. I apologise for just skipping over that one. And we'll now go to item 2, declarations of interest. As I've said, if you could just make a note in the conversation panel if you want to declare anything, otherwise declare it as we get to the relevant item. None so far. Item 3 is public participation. There appears to be none. So now we get to item 4, which is the review of Progress Centre for the Social Innovation Community Interest Company, CIC, and the Business Centre, which is located on the Otter Nursery site at Everton. Now, Claire Upton-Brown is going to introduce this report for us and will welcome Paul Sherry, which she will then hand over to.
Thank you, Chair. So, members, you have a report that sets out the background to this. The report confirms that in August 2018, Cabinet agreed to seed fund £75,000 to the CIC 49, and Hampshire County Council also agreed to seed fund by the sum of £150,000. The seed fund from the District Council was subject to a grant agreement, and the agreement required that the seed funding be used for skills and talent incubator, which would seek to deliver sector-specific skills. The money could also be used for the recruitment of a Director of Innovation, for initial internal building costs as the centre established, and for a marketing strategy, including the implementation of brand development, a new dedicated website, PR and digital campaigns to attract target businesses and sectors. It is now some 2 years since the seed funding was given to 49, and the purpose of this morning is to allow Paul Sherry to advise and confirm to the panel the progress that has been made over the preceding 2 years and how the seed funding has contributed to delivering the objectives set out by Paul when the matter was first discussed at Cabinet in 2018. So, members, I'm now going to hand over to Paul so that he can advise the panel of progress to date. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you, Chairman, for the invite today. I'm delighted to be here. Almost 2.5 years since we sat down and started developing this, and I'm really pleased to be able to come back and update the panel on progress to date. And before I start with the report and some of the points I'm going to discuss today, I just want to put a record my thanks as an individual for the work NFDC have done during COVID. We've obviously all been impacted in different ways, but I think the fleet of foot and the ability that's been shown by the council has been fantastic. So on behalf of businesses I sort of talk to all the time, it's been well reflected, and put that on record from my side of things. In terms of today going into my report, I believe the report that sort of triggered the invite to today has now been circulated by Andy. I'm not sure everyone's had time to digest it, and even more so understand it. So I guess for me today, it's the first time I've been in one of these panels, so I'm excited to do this, but I'm also not aware of the knowledge of everyone on the panel. So what I'm going to try and do today is get some balance. Okay, there's some technical things in here which I don't think anyone needs to be bogged down on, but what we want to try and do is look back from September 18 to February this year, reflect on COVID, and also look where the future sits as well. So with that in mind, I'm not going to read the report. I think everyone can do that themselves. I'm going to take some talking points out of that. I'm going to take no more than 7 or 8 minutes just to sum those up, and then we're open to conversation afterwards. So I'll just make a start, and we'll follow the report I've put forward, and we can discuss from there. Claire summed up where we were, and I just wanted to really say that the Centre for Social Innovation is a business-led open innovation centre. And what that means is a really important thing to understand, because what that means is that we are involved in innovation. Okay, we're also involved in focusing on the needs of business and how innovation, research and development can be commercialised into the market. So that's really what we've set 49 up to do. And innovation is key. And innovation, of course, is made up of research, development and commercialisation of opportunities. So we set out, it was a private-public partnership. This was the first phase. It was the seed phase. And of course, as we launched in January 29, following a successful project to refit South Efford House, which was on time and on budget, we launched on the 7th of December. Of course, it was launched by the MPs. It was opened by the MPs, and colleagues from the panel a number of which were in attendance. Obviously, we opened for business in January 2019, and then, of course, 2019 wasn't just about, COVID wasn't around in 2019, but it was certainly Brexit. We had a change of LEP, we had a general election, and we also had aligning the economic development strategy for not just for the NFDC, but also for the wider region. So that had a significant effect in how we take it from a seed into a growth stage. Having said that, our priority for phase one, which was opening, was to try and maximise occupancy in the centre, to try and make it commercially viable. So the investment model was private led. I funded quite a lot of it along with our business partner and other private investors. The public sector, as Claire's outlined, was a grant seed revenue funding of 150,000 in total, 75,000 FDC and 75,000 Hampshire, and a social loan, which was a capital to refit. And to date, we've had no follow-on investment. We've had a couple of attempts working with FDC at bids to government, but they haven't been successful. And now we're obviously talking about where we go post-COVID. So the space is 7,000 square feet. It's made up of, it's a high-tech centre, large, medium and small incubator and accelerator spaces, as well as conference room, etc. So in terms of the space and incubator model we operate, it's a flexible, easy in, easy out, affordable model, which is pretty much the government initiative to try and encourage businesses to come out of their sheds, off their kitchen tables, into their first level of growth, which is really important. So we've provided an environment in this phase. That's all we've really been able to do. An environment to, I guess, sort of encourage investment from the individual businesses, and then to sort of look at graduating them as they grow as businesses into other opportunities and other facilities in and around the region. The 49 formal programs is where the next level comes in. So, or we'll talk about that in a little while. But bringing you right back to now, up until January this year, or February this year, we had 20 plus start-up and early stage businesses based out of 49, either on a license within an office or within the co-working space, which is quite a significant size co-working space in the centre, and that's kind of how we operated. Before lockdown, we had a deal in the pipeline to be signed off, which would have brought us to 100% occupancy. Okay, the reality of COVID hit, as we all know, and we find ourselves in that situation where the frailty of that model around easy in, easy out was shown and highlighted, in as much as businesses were on a month in, month out, and they talked with their feet, because obviously we had to lock down, and now we have no co-workers in the space. They were migrating out as they heard about COVID from February onwards. They started to migrate and just leave the building. We obviously are running no conferences, and then since the first lockdown, we've been steadily open, and the offices seem to be okay. Still demand for offices, but no demand at all for co-working space. So COVID has really shaken things up. We're now left with 8 businesses, and NHS are in some parts of it as well, which we'll talk about in a second. Outcomes are really important to 49, really important to us as social entrepreneurs as well. And in terms of the social loan, which EM3LEP put in, that was very focused on full-time equivalent jobs. And the outcomes for 3 years was a target of 100 FTEs. In January this year, we got up to 26. And of course, since COVID's hit, we're not growing jobs at the moment in 49. There's no possibility of doing that. There's people surviving and they're laying off, and if they can come back, they're coming back. In terms of the specific grants that we're talking about and the seed grant which came from the NFDC, as Claire says, the agreement set out that the seed funding related to supporting the delivery of the following: skills and talent incubator. And to that end, and I don't think members will have seen this, but work started in September 28, which 49 led, working with Brock College to start off with, to develop exactly that, a skills and talent incubator under a New Forest Group Training Association. And that grew from ourselves and Brock College leading to Totton. Obviously NFDC were involved, Solent Apprenticeship Hub, Solent LEP, Solent University, New Forest Business Partnership, and on the side go New Forest as well. And that was really about implementing a quality mark, looking at creating a 5-point charter, looking at helping boosting productivity using skills, all of the things you'd expect to see. And so that was the first thing in terms of the incubator. As colleagues will know, because they've been involved with this, we also, at the end of 2018, through the New Forest Business Partnership, developed an implementation group, which started in January 2019, which looked at developing an integrated solution. And obviously skills was a part of that. So it was a kind of twin track approach. And in the middle of last year, there was a call by the Skills and Talent Academy to embed that into the work of the implementation group. And then Solent Apprenticeship Hubs came along, and the decision was made by the group that they were the best to take that on and move it into the next level. So we kind of were right at the forefront of developing the strategy, right at the forefront of bringing the partners together, agreeing that strategy, and then obviously looking at finding and sourcing the funding to make that happen. Just so happened the Solent Apprenticeship Hub was a new opportunity on the block, and that sort of took precedent. So that was in terms of the Skills and Talent Incubator. Reference the other two particular areas we're talking about today, the recruitment of a Director of Innovation. In September 18, I recruited a gentleman called Mujib Rockman, who is a well-known innovator in the area, has worked with universities, worked with Oxford Innovation previously, and knows his way around innovation. And he still remains our Innovation Director, although, of course, with the funding, we obviously, the funding lasted for about a year, so about September of last year. And of course, he was paid to deliver strategy, which we've got a strategy here, which we won't go into too much detail today, but I would like to send that forward to make sure that everyone sees it, and that underpins the work we're doing. So that was completed, work was done, and whilst Mujib isn't paid at the moment because we're looking for the next level of resource, he's still active and gives a lot of in-kind contribution to the organisation because he's very passionate about it. Marketing. We employed a local, after a procurement process, a local provider, a marketing agency. Were based in the Forest at the time, and they did everything from brand development right through to website development, right through to digital campaigning and marketing strategy. And Cloud 10 were excellent at doing that. And as people will know from the brand, it's a fantastic brand. They also put a lot of in-kind time into it as well. So those three particular areas were where the spend was delivered based on the agreement we had. And in terms of the rough breakdown of spend, say the 150,000 rather than breaking down into 75, marketing in all its forms was 50,000. The innovation director was 36,000. The refurb, when I say refurb, most of the refurb was done, 99% of the refurb was done under the social loan, but there were some soft furnishings and things to finish off the job, which was about 10,000. I also employed a business manager because we were moving through at the beginning of last year to move into phase 2, which was about formal programs, and we were getting a wider reach in the area. So I did employ a business manager, which was around 20,000. And then myself, of course, I'm a paid consultant by the organisation. My consultant fees ran into 34,000, which rounds up to 150,000. So that's really the summary of the spend versus the outcomes. So as far as we're concerned, the outcomes are still work in progress for the full-time equivalents, but delivery of the specific requirements of the funding itself. And just very quickly moving across to the financial impact of COVID. It's laid out there. We were expecting 100%. We were almost there to sign off. That obviously deal collapsed because of COVID. We've had to operate, as we'll talk about, you've seen in the report, we pivoted very quickly to operate to support the NHS in the COVID crisis. So we've had to operate the centre throughout COVID, including a 5-day-a-week regime for cleaning to a hospital level, which has been done by myself and my wife to make sure that the operations could continue to support their needs rather than sort of just focusing on obviously businesses. So I've personally invested to keep things going, and we find ourselves now in a situation where we hope that by the end of the year we will have recovered back out. Certainly the October to December is looking better than it was in July and September. We've got businesses back, we've got new businesses wanting to come in, and also the NHS looking at the potential of expanding into the centre based in the particular spaces where we can't sell at the moment, which is incubator space or co-working space and the conferencing room. So that's kind of where we are to date. Our response as 49, as I say, has been very much about we are social innovation. It's a centre for social innovation. So we have demonstrated our social innovation credentials during the COVID period by giving over the centre to the NHS, by rapidly deploying the midwives out of the hospital when they were asked to leave within 48 hours. And they are now seeing lots and lots of pregnant ladies in late stage. They're seeing newborn babies in the health visitor teams. So it's a clinical environment. They're taking bloods, and we are doing that work on the ground floor and the innovation work with the businesses back up on the second floor. So lots happening there. In terms of the go forward with NHS, there could well also be an opportunity around health tech and joining up some innovation with the NHS, and they're very keen to explore that into the new year. Having said that, whilst we also did that, we also moved to the market on looking at open innovation. So we did a challenge for designing safe spaces on an open innovation basis, and we had winners from across the country, as can be seen. Finally, just to summarise on a couple of other points before we go to questions, we also looked at our strategy and really focused in on that. And you can see from the innovation, investment and impact, that's where 49 sits. All of those things listed out are things that have been happening since the open of the centre from September 2018. Some of them are now coming to market, in particularly our new technology, a new app, which we're launching over the next few weeks, which looks at helping local communities. And, we can go into that in more detail, but that's the kind of work that we'll be involved in going forward, which is about addressing social issues, but using technology as the enabler to do that. What do we need? We're very much looking now, and we don't mean today is not for that conversation, of course, but we need to look for £400,000 over the next 2 years to further develop and accelerate the R&D capability, but also to get involved in formal programs. And there's some work happening behind the scenes on some of the funding around ERDF and etc., which could have started to enable that process. That is not a funding request of NFDC. I just want to make that quite clear. That is a funding requirement of 49. And of course, we're working with central, regional and local authorities and partners to deliver the public sector side of that. We will also leverage private sector investment from that. Also, just a point around, obviously people know, I don't know everyone on this panel today, but I know quite a few, and a lot of you know me and 49. But I just want to make it quite clear before I finish, Chairman, that we don't see this as all about 49. I believe there's maybe some sentiment around that maybe our profile has been maybe too high, I don't know. But I want to make it quite clear to everyone who's on this call today that it's not about 49. That's why I'm talking about the importance of a regional investment strategy, which covers all of the private innovators, the risk takers, as well as the public investment that goes into this. So I specifically mentioned in the report about other risk takers like Inkyhive, like Fawley, like others who are coming into the market, which potentially can extract a significant return on investment, but are also matching up private risk with public investment, which has to be the way to go forward. And finally, the investment fund, we are very keen to develop an investment fund that focuses on investing at the risk area, which is startups, and de-risking that by some of the work we're doing on our combined incubator and accelerator. So we're passionate about the New Forest and Hampshire as a wider region becoming the home of the entrepreneur. And I think by continuing to work together, we can do that. In summary, we are delighted with our start. Obviously, we've been impacted the same way as everybody else has in the country. We have no specific requirement to be feeling any more aggrieved than anybody, and everyone's had to work hard to get over this. But the potential going forward is very significant, and I believe the need is greater than ever for the work we're doing and others in the area to make sure the businesses can bounce back stronger than ever. And I just want to put on record my thanks for the support to date, and we look forward to hopefully working with you guys in the future. And that's it from me. Thank you, Chairman. Sorry for running over slightly.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Sherry. I've got quite a few people who would like to speak. I'd just like to ask a couple of questions myself. First of all, thank you for appreciating the input from the District Council. It's nice to know that it's not taken for granted. I think in your presentation, I got the impression that quite a lot of the seed money has gone in salaries. So I did just wonder to date, how many new apprenticeships have you created and how many new startups have you created?
Okay, so in terms of the apprenticeships, we haven't been able to create any, Chairman. The reason, as I say before, was that what we were doing was developing the strategy to be able to deliver the academy. Okay, so we were a driving force on that, but to actually convert that into an academy, that would require significant funding and also agreement about how to deliver that. So we couldn't do that on a standalone. Our job was to, as it says in the agreement, was to support the development of a skills and talent incubator. In terms of the space at the centre, just to add to that, there is a porter cabin which is now literally falling down. And the idea was at phase 2, when we sort of got commercial viability on the first phase, we could then look at potentially taking that down and rebuilding it as a purpose-built academy to actually start delivering the programmes for it. So certainly from that side of things, apprenticeships was taken off obviously on the apprenticeship hub, so it's more about how we've enabled them to start working with the forest. In terms of startups, there was, when we had 20 before COVID, probably I would say 12 or 13 of them were startup businesses, early stage. I don't mean pre-revenue, they were post-revenue, but they were early stage businesses, and they were attracted in by the environment we set. So 26 jobs so far by those businesses that have been into the centre and have been affected by the centre is where we sit on the outcomes of jobs itself.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. Now, I will open it up to other members. Can I just please remind you, members, one question only. If we have time, we will come back for second questions. And if you could possibly make your questions as concise as possible, I would appreciate that. So the first person on my list, who's actually disappeared off the top now, was, from my memory, was Councillor Levitt. So, Councillor Levitt, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, Paul, that was a tremendous performance, I have to say, but a very commercialised performance. And so my question is essentially, can you explain to me how I explain to residents of Branscore, my ward, okay, why we were spending this sort of money with you and not spending it with other local hotels who will have meeting rooms and facilities for food and beverage and all that sort of thing. So can you just answer that for my first question? I'll come back later.
Of course, Alan, yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. And I think for me, it's not about just investing in 49, as I mentioned earlier. There should be investment on the wider piece across everyone who can build jobs and skills. I think what the idea of 49 was to create a hub for innovation. And if you look at the ERDF funding that's coming through now, that is about hubs and spokes. So the idea, Alan, would be a hub for the centre, not 49. I'm not talking about 49, but it could be a series of these, like Inky Hive, like Forley. And then from there, into hotels, into smaller premises, you can have spokes. But the idea is to have a centralised hub and strategy upon which all of the towns and villages can hang and start to drive businesses. Because of the 9,000 businesses, I believe the numbers are around about 86% are one person bands in their homes. So the idea is to get a honeypot to draw them in, if that answers the question.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Carpenter, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, please go ahead.
It might be a bit quiet.
Yes,
Paul, it's nice to see you again.
Hi, Fran.
Yesterday, the Prime Minister announced a green industrial revolution. And I wondered, what have your startups, the ones that have started up, achieved by way of green tech, if any? And what are your ambitions for this, and can you benefit from the announcement and its funding streams?
Well, firstly, great to see you again, Fran. Thank you for the question. I've got to be honest, I've been quite busy preparing for today, so I haven't actually looked at the detail of the Prime Minister's announcement. But I think in terms of the businesses we have in 49, we have everything from charities to high-end marine engineering to tech development. I say we had, sorry, of course, pre-COVID. I must stop them as a soldier. And some of those tech businesses were looking at green tech. I think what I would say is this is singularly the biggest opportunity as we see it, okay? Because what COVID has done has probably narrowed a 10-year cycle of change into a 2.5-year cycle of change. That's where we're looking at things. And that has to be driven by green tech. It has to be driven by good connectivity, 5G to enable change. And it doesn't have to be about technology and looking for the next big thing. It's how good connectivity can enable the change using good tech. Okay, so green is absolutely at the heart of everything we're going to do. And some of the work we're doing in intelligent regeneration and intelligent communities has green at absolutely the heart. How do you deploy green tech for the future in the design of new communities? And that's really where I think the prize is, Fran. So I think collectively, everyone around this table shares the same aspiration. I think what we've got to do now is come together and agree a strategy for this that doesn't just look at NFDC, but also looks at the park, looks at the farming and diversification of that as well, and how green tech can enable that. So hopefully, sorry, long-winded, but hopefully that will answer the question.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Craze, please.
Members and Paul, thank you. As my colleague, Councillor Levitt, mentioned a moment ago, a very commercialised presentation, Paul. Not only the presentation, but reading through the accompanying notes that was sent out by Andy. My question, what was the fundamental strategy or strategic objectives at the beginning of this programme? You have mentioned what you have achieved against what has happened. Given that we've got necessarily realignment of business objectives, the business and financial impact is quite considerable as you move through. But how are you going to achieve objectives looking ahead? The other point I'll mention just very quickly, as regards the NHS, I understand where you're coming from. I've had conversations myself with the NHS Clinical Commissioning Group. I know they're looking for change and improvement across the New Forest as a whole, so it may be worth you and I having a conversation. Thank you, Chair.
Fantastic. Thanks for the question. I really appreciate it. In terms of in terms of where we sit now, in terms of the objectives originally set out, they were very much to deliver a business-led open innovation centre. Okay, and again, this is where we start to get a little bit technical, and again, it's an understanding of what we mean by business-led open innovation, etc. But the idea was, fundamentally, it's called the Centre for Social Innovation. So me as a social entrepreneur, I am a commercial entrepreneur, of course, we have to make a profit, but it's what you do with the profit. And that was the fundamental reason for setting it up. I formed a programme for kids kicked out of school in 2014, and we piloted it in the area with significant results. Just piloting by bringing business people together and trying something different for kids who've been kicked out of school. And that got me very interested in the third sector, as we call it, and social entrepreneurship, and that crossroads between the two. That's why I invested so heavily in 49, because I'm passionate about social change and social entrepreneurship and social return on investment. So I don't think that's changed, if I'm honest, Councillor. I think actually it's more required now than ever. COVID has changed the world and it's changed the dynamic, but what it's requiring is innovators to come forward and have to have a social bent to this, because it's not just about financial return now, it's about economic, social and environmental, what we call the triple bottom line. So for us, where we started out was absolutely on that bent. We looked to start businesses and grow businesses, and that wasn't just by, we're not a space player. What I mean by that, Councillor, is I'm not interested in being a landlord of 20 49s everywhere with my flag on the window. That's not what it's about. It's what happens in the centre and what comes out from the centre. So I would like to see that going into 2021, that we are a part of the solution to recover as quick as we can to allow businesses to bounce back. So we haven't fundamentally changed. We've refined and defined in those 3 areas exactly where we want to go in 2021. In terms of the NHS, I think that's a really, really interesting opportunity. We have an excellent tech dev team now. We have a really significant, I know regional players, by the way, they're regional teams who can now pretty much build whatever we want to build. Okay, if you look at it on a basic level, if we want some technology, our team can build it. Now we sit down and let's run some open innovation programs to look at not at health and well-being, but wellness and prevention. Okay, so we had initial conversations with the NHS around potentially having a wellness and prevention centre, which would have GPs, nutritionalists, all of them working together to do the modern day, even with interstitial scanning. That was the level we got to. But of course, the porta cabin's falling down. So now the NHS are coming in. There is now a strategic conversation started at the Southern Health level, senior management board level, around let's work together in the centre, but what the possibilities to grow from there. And that could be into more space, to strategically plan for the regional requirements, and innovation being at the heart of that. So sorry, Councillor, I ran on, but these are really important questions, and hopefully that's answered your question.
Thank you very much.
Chairman, sorry, if I may just very quickly add, Paul, looking at NHS is one thing. I would also suggest maybe looking at some of the medical partnerships across the New Forest area.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We will do.
Councillor Alsey, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll try and keep it brief. Just a couple of quick questions on funding. In the report we have, it said that the initial funding was going to be 150,000 from Hampshire County Council and 75 from NFDC. In your presentation, you said 75,000 from Hampshire County Council, so I just wanted to clarify that. And my second question on the same sort of topic is, can I take it you're now receiving income from the NHS for the services that you're providing in the centre? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Just for clarity, I think it's a typing error on the report you've received, Councillor. The total was 150,000, 75,000 from NFDC and 75,000 from Hampshire County Council.
Okay. Thank you.
And in terms of the question around the NHS, we are now finally receiving. When we moved and pivoted to bring in the Lymington midwives, we didn't do it on a commercial basis. We did it on a social basis to help out with the COVID issue. It took 6 months to receive some rent to cover the 6 months. But the good news is we now have systems established, so we're okay. And if additional NHS come in, those established systems will now accommodate that as well. So yeah, thankfully we're now receiving some revenue, and also with the businesses coming back in, they can start to pay as well. So we're hopefully coming out of the curve, Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Tipp. Councillor Tipp.
Yes, good morning. I see you've got a lot of public money that's started this up. I just wonder whether going forward you will receive private money, and whether that private money will be sufficient to keep you going, or will you constantly need more public money to keep you going? And just a quick question on another point. Why are you called 49? It doesn't seem to relate to anything you do.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Great questions. In terms of the first one, obviously we started operations from September 18, but as you can imagine, a project of this size was in development and conceptualisation for a couple of years before that, to align all of the thinking with different partners. So I have invested, my business partner also invested significant amounts of money in excess of the seed grant funding that we've received to date. So we have got what they call skin in the game, significant risk and significant investment. Going forward, there's two elements to this, Councillor, and certainly if we're going to deliver formal programmes which are government led, if we're going to deliver R&D, which is the fundamental basis of innovation along with commercialisation, then of course we would need some private money or some public money on that. But our philosophy is simple. We don't want to keep coming back for grant funding. We want to match up. So we want sustainable funding agreed for the next 3-5 years that can allow us to get on with the work, and then we will match that up with private investment externally. And we talk about the investment fund. That is one example of doing it, because the idea is to do the R&D, but then also commercialise these opportunities. And I think that's an opportunity for us to give back, not just on a sort of social return on investment, but potentially on equity. That's where we want to go. We want the public purse to benefit from equity in the same way as the private one as well. So I've offered that already to the authorities, and of course the authorities haven't got the facilities yet to achieve that, but I would love to see that in the future. And in terms of 49, I would like to say it's the cleverness of branding, but the simple answer, if you look at our website, it's 50 minus 1, of course, equals 49. The reason 50 minus 1, because the longitude and latitude of the centre is 50.684 and minus 1.482. So 50 minus 1 equals 49.
Very clever. Okay, next speaker is Councillor O'Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think you've more or less answered a lot of it, but I'm guessing that your outgoings at the moment will run about 10 or 12,000 a month, because you've now got to start paying back the 220,000.
Yes.
How are you going to fund that? Because at the moment, to me, it looks like you've had all the grants and the seed funding which have kept you going for the first 2 years, and now it looks like you're going to need the same again to keep you going. Where is this? I can't see where the self coming back in, and also you've invested money. I expect you want that back. So when's that going to happen?
Well, the simple answer is as soon as possible, hopefully, Councillor. But the point is a very good one. Where we sit at the moment, it's been very difficult. It wasn't easy on any startup, but with our commercial angle as well as trying to get the organisation off the ground, it hasn't been easy. Made many times worse since COVID. But what we've managed to do is obviously talk to our landlords as well, in the same way as government have advised to speak between landlords and residents and tenants to say, is there a way we can do this? So we're in conversations with them to help, hopefully them backing off calling in rent for the centre in that particular period. As soon as we come out, we're back onto the normal footing. So what we've been doing is, like any business would do, Councillor, is looking to cut the overheads and grow the revenue, but obviously revenue's been a bigger issue. So we have cut down on overheads. A lot of the work we've been doing, we obviously have to keep the lights on because we've got the NHS in there. So we've had to pay for broadband and everything else. I funded that personally during the period, and we haven't been able to draw any funds or any salaries. We haven't been able to pay cleaning because we're doing that. That is social investment. That is hard. We can't just say, oh well, that's tough, unlucky. We've rolled our sleeves up and we've taken the pain on that. Certainly coming out of this now, if we can conclude these deals, we're back on a commercial footing. Okay, and that would allow some drawings. That's what we're bringing in early 21. We've already started conversations about investment. There are significant investment opportunities privately to start coming into 49 from some of the technology we're developing, from some of the R&D that's already in development. So that's how we look to match this up. There's a structure which says not-for-profit is where the R&D is done, and there's a private vehicle for when we commercialise. We were starting that process. We were in conversations with investment funds, but that's all been put out. But we are starting again in January. So, yeah, I can't personally take that much more pain, if we want to put it that way, around financials. I can't continue to support it. But I'm not here looking for a bailout, if that makes sense, Council. I just want to be quite clear about that. I think NFDC and Hampshire County Council have been very, very generous in their support, and we appreciate that. Where I'm looking to talk now is about the future, those paid-for programmes, developing maybe the space further to allow more space occupancy and more R&D and more start of businesses. That's why I think we've kind of done what we can, but now we're in the future conversation. So any conversation I'll be looking for with the district council, county, LEP, etc., will be about sustainable funding for the next 3 to 5 years to enable us to deliver and grow and scale on the success of the startup phase. Sorry to go on, but I'm limited now on the pain any more pain I can take. But I think it's a partnership. It's a private-public partnership, and we look to extract that a little bit now.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kangarani, please.
Yeah, hello. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Councillor.
Thank you. I understand the subject is quite technical, and I did try to read the report. I think I need another 50 pages to just understand the total the information. But really, what is missing from your presentation is projection. And I haven't seen any slides showing where you are, where you have been, have you met your targets, where you're going to go next. I mean, you give us lots of description of what you're going to do, but it's not demonstrated at the moment to me that whether you met any of your targets it was set initially, if you have, what you missed. And obviously, you mentioned election, Brexit, budget, and also no COVID-19 as reasons for something not happening. But I'm still worried that you haven't really given us enough projection of where we're going to go. And I was also expecting to see a comparison of how your centre is done compared with the other centres who exist in Southampton, Winchester. They are all co-working areas, that how they are coping with this thing. Basically, I'm asking to see a comparison.
Yep.
If they feel the same as you have, and obviously you haven't met the target, you missed out a long way, like creating jobs and incubation. And 26 against 100 is quite a lot. You haven't said if you were going forward before COVID, how you would have met your targets. We don't have that information. Therefore, and also just in the final word, you are not asking for money, but you're asking for money. I'm not quite sure you're asking, we don't want your money, but at the same time you're asking, how you sustain us? I'm just getting a bit confusing sort of signals from yourself. Maybe just perhaps enlighten a bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, very good points. I guess my side of things, it's a very good point. And the purpose of today for me, and again, we've got all of that analysis, and I'm more than happy to share that analysis, and we can certainly provide that and add further detail. The simple answer is the issues, the shocks of the last 9 months or 8 months have changed the situation completely. And any aspirations and plans that we had have been adjusted accordingly. And I guess what we're doing now is going back to basics to try and survive, and then look to revive into 2021. In terms of the comparisons against other operators, I think that's a very good one. I think it's a very good one to look at. I haven't been able to personally, at this stage, because I think everyone's up against it, speak to Steve and the guys at Inky Hive, and slightly different with Brett because they're not in development yet. I know guys at the Eco Labs as well, but again, the model they operate is slightly different, Councillor. So again, we have space, but we're also involved in startups, and we're also involved in program frameworks going forward. So just to clarify on the full-time equivalent jobs, 26 versus 100, just want to make a clarity on that front. That's the target over 3 years. Okay, it was starting from September 18, going into 3 years, and of course it will be adjusted accordingly for COVID. So my view was we'd achieved that in a relatively short space of time. There was a real opportunity to grow further on that, but of course we've now got to adjust. I think if we can get the tech out, if we start to invest, I feel confident we'll still hit that, but it won't be 3 years from the start of it. It'll have to be adjusted to allow for COVID. So what I would suggest, what I'd be more than happy to do, Councillor, for yourself and anybody else who wants to see it, is to provide some analysis, given where we are in terms of the targets. From my side of things, all I can look at is outcomes that are set in agreements. And as far as I'm concerned, we've achieved the agreements for the seed funding. We are a quarter into a 3-year programme for full-time equivalent jobs, and we've had to deal with COVID in the middle of it. So I'm certainly not here making excuses. What I'd like to do is share reality, the warts and all of this situation, because I want everyone to be in the same boat as myself. So I'll provide that analysis without question, and then I would like your feedback to me directly, if that's okay, Councillor, whether that answers the questions, if there's more to ask, because we haven't got all the answers. I think all of us now, whether we're innovators and we think we're good business or not, we're all struggling with the same issues, and any advice and support we can get would be very, very welcome. And finally, just to clarify, I just wanted to make it clear that this isn't me coming here saying, can we have a bailout, throw some cash to us. I'm much more interested in the long-term sustainability. So yes, I am asking, not asking for cash, I am asking for cash, you're spot on.
You're asking for cash.
I'd like to think it's in a slightly different, nuanced way, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Claire Upton-Brown, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come back and confirm to the panel on the figure in my report. So the figure of 150,000 from Hampshire County Council was the figure that was in the Cabinet report in August 2018, and the figure that I've consistently seen in correspondence relating to 49er from the County Council. So the figure isn't a typographical error, it is the figure that was in the Cabinet report and based on which the Cabinet made the decision to give the £75,000 from NFDC. So it is the correct figure. Thank you, members.
Thank you very much, Claire. Well, we've had lots of questions there. Does anybody want a second question? Brief question. I've got no more requests to speak. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Sherry. There's certainly a lot for the council to chew over. I appreciate that COVID has made a difficult intervention. However, I guess I'm disappointed that not more has been delivered. After all, you had all of 2019 to deliver something, and with no apprenticeships created, and I'm not aware of any startups being created. It's difficult to see a way forward when we're talking about taxpayers' money, but we've got a lot to think about. I appreciate your presentation. Clearly, a lot of effort has gone into that. You've provided us with a lot of information, and if any other councillor feels that there's something that they would like clarified, I'm sure that they can get in touch with you either through Claire or directly. So thank you. Paul 7. Who's Paul 7? Don't know who the 7 is. I've got a little message here. I don't know what it means, is the truth of the matter. Councillor Carpenter, could you clarify?
I apologise. I just said thank you, Paul, and for some reason 7 also went in. I say thank you to Paul because I've met him and I know that they do great work. I
thought it was another one of these codes like 50 minus 1. I thought perhaps it was 6 plus 1 this time. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Sherry. We appreciate you coming along. So, councillors, all we have to do now is note the recommendation in 5.1 and that we consider the verbal update from Mr. Sherry for seed funding. I guess that's at a later date. I'm not aware that there is... Did somebody speak?
Yeah, haven't Cabinet paid this money yet?
No. The council have already given some money in 2018. The presentation basically was, as Councillor Kangarani said, another plea for money. So that's what it is. So, councillors, can you all agree on the update that we've had on the current position of 49?
I'm just, Alex, I'm just a bit worried, really. Sorry, it's me speaking, Kangarani.
Yes, I can see you.
Thank you. Actually worried that we can't give further grants until we see the projection of the development, what they're going to do.
You're absolutely right, Councillor, and your questions were exceedingly pertinent. But we are not actually being asked to approve a grant or to discuss an amount, but I'm quite sure that all the questions were very good today. I'm sure they will all be taken forward by Claire to go eventually to the Cabinet, but we're not actually being asked to make that decision. So, okay, so everybody happy with that report, and we'll now move on to item 5. Which is the New Forest financial support overview, and Alan Bethune is going to present this report.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. So as announced by the Chairman, this is a report that brings together an overview of the financial support that's either come to the Council or through the Council on behalf of businesses and residents of the New Forest. Obviously, I think we're all aware that there's been a lot going on since obviously the announcement of the initial lockdown in early March, and that's brought about several tranches of funding support that have been announced by the government, several of which have as I say, come through this council. The report itself, I think it's fairly self-explanatory. I think what I've tried to do is lay out the support, obviously, to the council, i.e. to help us with our new expenditure pressures and our own income losses that have obviously been fairly significant. Most of those obviously being reflected in the September emergency revised budget. We then have a section which is the support to New Forest businesses. So as members will be aware, in September to this panel there was a report that confirmed the value of business support grants that were paid out via this council. We've also had to revise and reflect our business rate bills. So again, that's a further business rate discounts of 27 million that again we've administered. And more lately, and outlined in 4.3, there's the 2 additional grants now that we've also had in terms of the November lockdown. I'll just pause at that point because unfortunately there is a slight arithmetical error in the subtotal there. It should actually be 7,112,000, not the 7,211,000. So I apologise for that, and that will be reflected in the minutes. And finally, the support to New Forest residents, again, just over 1.1 million has been received by the council, again, for our distribution to our residents in most need. That was through the hardship fund, and also increases in council tax reduction. And obviously there have been a few other minor funding areas and grants coming our way too. I think the Appendix 1 obviously tries to demonstrate for us essentially how much of those payments, how much of those grants have been utilised by the council, and amounts outstanding. So I think, members, I'll pause there, and I'm obviously happy to take any questions. But I think my underlying purpose and reason really for doing this report and bringing it together, which there are 22 different lines here of grants, supports that have come through this council. I think it's kind of unprecedented in terms of scale, and just shows that there has been a commitment, I think, to support businesses, residents and the council of the New Forest by the central government. Chairman, happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Alan. Martin, Councillor Levitt, one question first, please, and then if we have time, we'll come back for your second question. So, Councillor Levitt, please.
Well, the first one is just it's not a question, it's an observation. I quite agree, Alan. You and your team have done a fantastic job in these circumstances. I cannot applaud you enough. Anyway, my first question is on paragraph 411, business support grant. The 57,850,000 we've received from government. Again, it's a naive question on my part, but how long can we hold on to the 14,500,000? Do we have to ease it back over a fair stretch of time, or do we have to pay it ASAP?
We completed our reconciliation at the end of October. Right. I'm essentially waiting for a docket to come back now from MHCLG that confirms that they're happy with our year-end reconciliation, that the 14.5 million is to be returned, and I'm waiting for them to ask us to return it to them.
Right.
That's where we are with that.
Thank you. Councillor Graves, please.
Chair, thank you. Alan, very quick question, observation again. Wonderful in terms of what you've dealt with, the speed you've dealt with it. No complaints about that at all. Actually, it's been brilliant. My question: getting the finances in place is one step. Making everybody aware is the other one. Now, I see adverts, etc., appearing on websites. What else has been put in place vis-a-vis communicating what is available?
Yeah, it's a very good question. As you say, we've tried to be as targeted as we can with our comms. So in terms of the business support, which is obviously the main one, and obviously the support to residents, we've tried to utilise as much as we can all of our social media platforms. The website has continually been updated with the latest and new information. We've also had our targeted emails. So again, with the business e-newsletter, it's really pleasing that we had so many additional businesses sign up to receive our newsletters off the back of these business support grants. And in terms of the residents, again, that are in hardship, what we tend to find is that those residents are perhaps the ones who have struggled to meet their council tax bills, for example. So again, we've sent out various letters in the post to those individuals and been more than happy to have conversations and actually encouraged our residents to call us, talk to us about their individual circumstances and see whether any of the funds that we've got, we can actually direct and help and support them. So yes, we've tried various methods of communication with all parties.
Thank you, Alan.
Councillor Heron, your concise question or comment, please?
Comment really, just to say publicly how incredibly proud I am of the NFDC team at the speed at which they've managed to get this money out. And just a couple of other facts and figures that have come up since then. We've had a local restriction support grant come out, and already we have received over 1,000 applications and paid out nearly 900 of those at a total of over 1.3 million in just a matter of days. On top of that, we've dealt with test and trace support payments, 115 applications received, 38 of those have been paid out, £19,000, and our council tax support hardship, we've had 3,617 claims made and a payment of over 568,000 on that. So we are very, in a time when we're working remotely, when we've got difficulties of our own, we are really delivering for our community and getting the money back out there to those most in need. And I'm incredibly proud of our service that we're providing for our people.
Yes, very good. Thank you very much. And Councillor Levitt, your second quick question.
Thank you, Chairman. Just on your Appendix 2, the second page of Appendix 2, if that helps you, Alan, point 14, business support during, and you talk about supporting businesses that are not business rate payers or legally forced to close. How just very briefly, how are you controlling that? Because presumably we must be getting inundated with try-ons, hit and miss merchants, you know.
Yeah, well, that particular one actually, that's essentially brand new. So we actually had guidance on the scheme above, number 13, right. Monday at 10 to 8 in the morning, and we were live with our reform on that same day, because obviously we put the background in. That was the statutory government scheme. All we've got at the moment is very limited guidance in terms of this discretionary support scheme. Yeah. And Claire and Matt Callahan in the economic development team are working with the portfolio holder there in terms of targeting or ensuring that we target that support funding to the right areas. So that one is still very much a work in progress at the moment.
So it's just getting on the phone and talking to these people as best you can. It's as basic as that.
So as with previous, we will communicate as far and as wide as we can with all businesses, all parties that we think ought to be benefiting from this funding.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks to Claire and Matt.
So if I could just clarify then, Alan, I guess these are the forgotten people that I've often talked to you about, the people who have businesses who are self-employed, but because they don't have a premises, they get no support at all. So this means the government is finally looking at them, does it?
Yes, they are indeed. And actually what's really encouraging this time is that the value of the discretionary fund is actually slightly higher than the value that we've had as the statutory fund. So yeah, I think the government have realised that actually there is a a whole range of, as you say, individuals out there who are trying to run businesses. Just because they're not in a premises, they're still just as impacted, and so are worthy of some financial support.
Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Kangarani, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I just have to praise the team as well, like everybody else. I think like going around tapping our own shoulder, really, and then sort of saying how wonderful we have done, because obviously everybody has. And my question is about the grants, if I may ask. I think it's Appendix 3. Is that the right time to ask the question?
Yes, feel free.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I think page 17 is kind of a small amount of payout on number 16 and 18 compared with the budget. My question would be whether the criteria for claiming money is so high that people cannot be qualified. Just wondering how the thinking was. You putting a budget, but you're really giving only a small portion of the money out. That was one question. Shall I go to the next one?
Well, just do the one first.
Okay.
I can't make an exception for you.
No, sure. I'll come back. Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, with regards to the amounts received, obviously we were given the cash before the scheme was fully implemented, and the government basically had to make an assumption in terms of caseload, so that they used averages across the country and distributed funding according to that formula. Obviously, as we know, we've been fairly minimal in terms of our impact down here in this particular part of the country. So we've received an average payment, but actually our caseload, if you like, is below average, because obviously we haven't had as many test and trace issues as, say, up in the north of the country. So again, I think all I can do is say that as soon as we have an application received by us, the team are on it straight away, and anyone who is eligible for either scheme is made their payment within 48 hours. So again, we are just doing our best to administer the scheme that we've got. In terms of whether we will ultimately dish out all of the funding or not, it really does depend on, as you say, the cases and the instances we have of the virus down here in the New Forest.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, actually, there are no more RTSs, so Councillor Kangarani, go ahead with your second question.
Yeah, sure. Okay, that's on page 18. A couple of grants that hasn't been actually paid out. Number 20, which was £71,000. Marshals, that I don't know whether that was been even used. And second question, I think it's been raised before, that is number 21, High Street Fund. If I'm being biased here, I'm a high street trader, so to speak. I don't know how to claim that money at all. I think that question was raised, they said it's too difficult to give the answer for it. Maybe you can tell us how we can get that money.
Yeah, I can certainly help with number 20, and I'm glad that Claire is on the call in terms of number 21, because that's a grant that's been administered through her and her team. In terms of the COVID marshals, yes, again, we received some guidance. With that guidance came a sum of money, just over 71,000. We've had various conversations at cabinet level in terms of how best to utilise that funding, and actually we are just about to recruit and target COVID marshalling in certain particular areas where we know that we have issues. For example, I think there have been matters raised in and around Brockenhurst, i.e. the students all coming off the trains at the same sort of time, all walking down the high street in big groups. So again, we've taken a view that actually we might need some presence in Brockenhurst during, college arrival times and departure times. So again, we've looked at that. We've got people now in place. So that's not a grant that we distribute. That's for the council to administer, and we can, as I say, we can recruit our own marshals and COVID ambassadors or whatever we want to call them across the district. In terms of the High Streets Fund, again, Claire, are you okay to?
Yeah, I'll come in on that. Thank you, Alan. So in terms of the High Street Fund, it's a grant we claim back once expenditure has occurred. There are very, very strict criteria, and it is just for making the environment around high streets safer for people to be in. So it is limited to signage, which has to be branded with the EU funding brand, and for the improvements or changes to public realm. So the creation of temporary cycle routes, maybe the introduction of things such as planters to actually segregate walkers within the high street. So it is very, very strict set of criteria. It's paid to communities to carry out those highway work, or indeed to the county council to cover the cost of putting in place things like temporary traffic regulation orders when used to enable the introduction of pop-up cycle provisions. So I hope, Councillor Kangarani, that helps clarify. Again, I can
okay, thank you for that, Claire. Yeah, I didn't, obviously it doesn't apply to the the high street trader. It is somebody, no, it isn't. Okay. I can go back to Alan. Sorry. There's
another question waiting. So okay, if you're after a third question, join the queue. Okay. So, Councillor Harris, and just a reminder, the questions are concise.
Thank you, Alexis. Well, it was more just to give some answers, and apologies, I've obviously rejoined the meeting, tried to be in another meeting earlier, and it was just to say that my first meeting this morning was to agree with officers the policy wording for the discretionary grant fund, local discretionary scheme that you've got mentioned in your papers, £3.6 million that will be there. That discretionary fund, and this was a bit of a shock is probably too strong a word, but I was cognizant of the fact that this fund has to run until 2022. So it's for 2 years. So 3.6 million is the discretionary fund that we can administer to help businesses through other lockdowns that may occur. And as I said in my meeting this morning, we've already heard on the news this morning about whether we're all going to be allowed to hug and kiss our loved ones over Christmas. And if we do, for every day that we hug and kiss them, we will have to have 5 days of lockdown in compensation. Other lockdowns may be coming. And when they do, if they do, that money will have to be used for businesses at that time. So good news about funding, but clearly coming with some pretty strong conditions, and it's got to last a long time. And I think the other point has already been answered about that the 159,000 that Councillor Kangarani just asked about. Yeah, that's really for signage and for parish councils to administer. It's not money available for businesses. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. So, Councillor Kangarani, you've got the last word.
Okay, all right, thank you, appreciate that. I think I'm going to go to Alan about the marshal. Can that money be spent on the community policemen, which we already have in place, rather than getting more people involved? Is that something viable?
Yeah, I can just confirm. We have had conversations with the local police, and we have been working with them, and even the fire service, for example. Again, just trying to get some joined up working between all organisations involved. So yeah, we have been having those conversations already.
Good. Thank you very much. Another interesting discussion. So members, the recommendation is on page 9, item 1, and it's that the members of the panel note the comments in the content rather of the report. So if that's all noted, we'll now move on to item 6, which is the ICT strategy and budget update. And Rob Beer will take this one, please.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and all the councillors. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. So I'll give a quick summary of the report and then take your questions. Does that work for everyone?
Perfect.
Okay, so it's been a really hectic year for ICT, with many of our big work items that we've been taking forward over the last couple of years coming to fruition. And I think we can all agree that the importance of IT has never been more evident. The two big things we've achieved has been the external face of the council has been kind of improved, and I'll come on to how in a few minutes. And the second big item has been enabling smarter working, by which I mean the dispersed and flexible working that we've had to do throughout the pandemic has been successfully enabled. The big project achievements have been the implementation of the new council website and a new telephone system, replacing the old Avaya system with Skype. And not just that, but also putting in place contact center software to enable call routing to be handled and queued in the right way. And the result of all of this is that we've transformed our external face and the portal through which the public reach us. In terms of smarter working, the big achievements there have been the success of our VPN rollout, which is the means by which officers and members can connect into our network, and the use of Skype and Office 365. It's hard to imagine that it was only this time last year that we were implementing Office 365, so we've come a long way in 12 months. But importantly, it's enabled us, despite a few glitches, to continue to do business throughout the pandemic. Another really big step we'll be taking in January is putting in Teams for conferencing. And we're all using Skype now, but I think when we get Teams, you'll appreciate, if you've not already seen Teams, that it is a better end user interface. And so that will really help us to do things in a better way come the new year. In terms of the budget, overall, I'm recommending just a slight reduction in the budget we talked about last year and a rephasing of the budget. We've largely, with just a couple of things that are highlighted in the report, stayed on track with the existing projects, which is not to be underestimated in the IT world. Keeping on track with project budgets is always a challenge. But we have had to rephase a significant amount of our spend on future projects due to more time needed for scoping and specification prior to building the systems. And obviously building the systems is where the majority of the spend is. So overall, it's been, in my view, and I hope in everyone else's view, a really good year for ICT. We've come a long way, and I think importantly, we've positioned ourselves very well to commence our next forward strategy cycle, which I'll be working on next year, so that we're ready for 2022 and onwards, so that we've got the right technology in place in the future. So that's it from me. Over to any questions.
That's great. Thank you very much. And the first person with a question is Councillor Levitt.
Would it not be better for Jeremy Herron to comment, because he may be answering one of my questions, sort of thing?
Oh, I'm happy with that. Are you, Councillor Herron? Are you happy to go first?
I'm always happy to speak, Chairman. I'm a politician.
We know that. Reminding you that it's quite brief.
Chairman, I just wanted to fill in a few other little gaps on this and to express to members how impressed I am with our ITC services within the council. Not many of you will know, but we have close on 400, 500 people working remotely. That's not a small feat. If you have been on this council any length of time, you would have known that if we'd done something like this 3-4 years ago, we would have been in serious trouble. So I just want to highlight the fact that we've done that. So not only have we got a massive amount of people working remotely and being able to carry on the council's business and support our community, but at the same time we've seen massive steps forwards in a number of the systems and programs that we operate. I mean, no small feat was the fact that in the last lockdown we completed the upgrade of our financial package, which was a difficult project on its own, but it was achieved in some part remotely during a lockdown. We continue with that program as we look to modernise a number of the other packages that we have, basically our data handling and also our planning structures project. Added into that, Rob, whenever he thinks he's relaxing, he came out of industry so that he could take a quieter life in the rural back roads of a district council. And boy, did we sucker him with that one. Whilst we did that, he's done this telephone system, which I don't know whether for him, but certainly for me, although I have a little knowledge of ICT, I have very, very scant knowledge of a telephone system. What a major project, what a nightmare. And we were right up against the wall on that because of the fact that the other system was being switched off unless we literally put millions of pounds into it. And he had such a tight deadline and achieved it. All credit to him and his team. Absolutely fantastic work. He introduced Skype. Brilliant. We were all amazed and dazzled with it, and so quickly did Teams come along behind and suddenly take over, and within a matter of 12 months the predominance of Skype went out the window and Teams is now coming forward, and he's under huge pressure to implement that, which he's happily taken on and said yes he will and bring forward. Again, that's not an easy feat. With the number of machines and configurations we have out there, to take that all forward is not something that it takes 5 minutes and we're all done. So again, a huge project for him. On top of that, he's modernised our website, made it easier, increased the ability to search. I hope people who use it find it better. And another little note I got through the other day, which is a techie bit, I must admit, but our PSN code of connection, he happily told me that this year, no need for advisories or security issues. There's a tiny little report that he has to put in and our chief executive has to sign. But do you know, I think that is the first time in the history of NFDC technology that we have achieved that on our security. So again, a brilliant part on his team to achieve that against everything else that they're facing. And I just think that it's worth mentioning that I'm really proud of our ICT team and what they're delivering for this council. Thank you.
Councillor Heron, I can see Rob's head growing and filling the entire screen.
I'm just moving closer to the camera.
It's well deserved.
Can I just say the credit goes to the team because they are brilliant, and I flagged that up in the report, and they have been absolutely superb. So credit to them all.
Councillor Levitt, were your questions answered there?
One of my questions was indeed answered. I've only got 5 questions now. Can you hear me all right now?
Well, you can have one.
Okay, well, should I just ask 2 quick ones? Then
no, you can ask one because somebody else might want to speak.
I hear what you say. Right, it's paragraph 3.1. Okay, you talk about the ICT strategy, blah, blah, blah. Aim to replace the aged and out of support ICT infrastructures at NFDC. My crucial point is, how did the council reach this situation, and what is to be learned by us as councillors?
Do you want me to start the ball rolling on that?
Yes, that's okay.
So this does happen, cyclically, that you're going to end up with kit going, more and more out of date, and we're going to face the same thing in 4 or 5 years' time, where the stuff we've put in is going to get to the end of life. What happened? When I arrived, we just realised that there needed to be a significant refresh of a number of components, i.e. most of them, within the council's infrastructure. So we set to work on that, and it did give us a chance to, if you like, leapfrog some of the other local authorities, in that we were putting in place things that were, we had to kind of wall to wall replace everything, which meant we could come up to date. And we've done that, and our approach with cloud and with our virtual servers in Gosport, in the data centre we hire out there, has brought us up to date. But it's an ongoing challenge to stay up to date. If you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards.
Yeah, so it was the fault of the equivalent service manager at the time, not driving things through. But don't answer that question. That's just an observation.
So Councillor Heron just wanted to give a little bit more of insight into that answer, if you'd like to do that, Jeremy.
Chairman, our officer was very tactful. I think we took our eye off the ball. It's a very simple thing. We rested on our laurels. Things worked, and because things worked, people didn't progress the ICT, and it does, as Rob said, it gets dated almost the second that you've put it in, almost the second that you've completed it, as demonstrated by our Skype. We put in Skype, almost immediately we're looking at the next stage. And we took our eye off the ball, and because of that, we did get seriously behind. We were running on outdated systems, and it all seemed to come together at the same time. Our servers, our systems, all came out of date. Because they were coming out of date, they couldn't run the more modern applications, so we weren't implementing modern applications on those servers. We were running historic applications, and the whole thing really did very quickly from that point go downhill fast. I hope that is something we will never, a position we will not find ourselves in, and as I think we're demonstrating, we are going forward and we are always looking forward, but it is a never-ending, constant requirement for investment and for movement. It's not standing still, and it won't stand still. And Chairman, if you will indulge me without shouting at me too much, one thing I did forget to mention when I was doing my spiel is the fact that we now have half the members looking to run on council devices and having the upgraded ability that they have through running on council devices rather than their personal devices, something that Rob has helped roll out and his team has helped roll out, which gives so much more functionality to members, which wasn't something we planned before the pandemic, was something we brought in because of the pandemic. And as I say, now 50% of members will have council devices. We've just reached that target.
Jeremy, thank you very much for that clarification of the history of ICT. Thank you.
That's great. Now, Councillor Carpenter had to leave the meeting, but she has said, thank you, Rob, some big ICT achievements and changes, well done. So I'm sure you can pass that on to your team. Councillor Kangarani.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I want to just make a point. The comment made by Councillor Harron about the ICT, I mean, obviously he has been on the board for years, and suddenly he realised after many years that ICT out of date and something has to be done about it by somebody else, I take it, because obviously he wasn't aware that is the problem. Now, I just get disappointed. He become a political point. That wonderful what we have done here is really unfair. I think he should take his political hat off and stick to the point of what being delivered by other people rather than keep praising himself and his group. I'm sorry.
If I could just interject there, I don't think that's how it came across. It's just that ICT didn't actually appear to be a council priority. We had other priorities, and then events happen, as they say, events, dear boy, events, and they have started to come together in the necessity to do an upgrade. So I don't think there's any political point there. It's just a reality. Councillor Harris, oh no, he's leaving. So, Councillor Levitt, did you have one more question?
Well, I've got 4 more questions still.
Well, there's somebody else wants to speak, so you can do one.
Okay, well, I'll go through them individually, if that's all right with you, Rob.
Yeah, you do one, and then I have Councillor Sullivan.
My second question is about paragraph 4.1 in your report. It talks about cost savings on the content management system. So can you just clarify what you mean by cost savings? Is that people, office facing customers and what have you, or machines, or support contracts? How are those cost savings going to rise?
Yeah, there is a business case. I'm not sure if Alan or Manjit want to comment on this. There is a business case for the whole digital platform, which includes various elements in it. So probably I'm here to deliver the technology, but I'd rather not get into the kind of the knock-on effects of that. If Alan or Manjit want to comment.
Yeah. Chair, are you okay if I respond? It's Manjit.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. So if we take the digital business case, that will have all the costs of the technology. That'll have all the costs of where we're shifting resource. So what we've done with digital is, as we've had turnover of staff in our frontline services, so that's when we've had vacancies, we've used those vacancies to shift resource into digital. So like the website, to the work we've done on the website, and I know at Community and Leisure they met our digital officer Matt, who's been working on the project and is now working on phase 2. So the whole business case will look at all the costs, all the investment, and it will look at where we are changing resources to shift them where we need them.
Okay,
okay. Well, that was a nice answer, Majid, but it wasn't very detailed. I mean, is it individuals with saving staff as officers, minor officers maybe, or is it hardware? That's what I was looking for the answer to. My question.
Okay, so it is saving on resources, so staffing. It is,
Okay.
yes. Yes, it is. And there may be changes in the technology as well, where you are replacing old technology with new technology, and that could have an efficiency saving there as well.
Great, okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manjit. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Chairman. Robert, obviously I'm surprised and pleased with the way that you've actually carried out everything over the last 2 or 3 years and how you've brought things forward. And I'm been quite pleased with the interactions I've had with you yourself. Could you give a bit more detail on the CRM and how that's progressing and where we're going to? And just as a little aside, can we get better names than BW7? In, Aggresso was so much more fun than BW7. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's probably a decision for Alan in terms of the name of the finance system. We did talk about giving it a brand. We've decided to call the Accolade replacement, which is one of our big systems, rather than just Accolade. We're calling that Project RS for regulatory services. So on that point, in terms of the CRM, we've got a project team working on that, and that's a mixture of people from IT and the sort of service areas. And we are putting together requirements at the moment, which is quite a big job because it's about getting all of the relevant areas who are going to need to use a customer management system, on board with the specifications, so we can then go out to market and choose the right product. And at the moment, the jury is still out on whether we need a full-scale, what's called a full-scale CRM system or something a bit lighter. Okay, the system we've got at the moment is very, very light. But given our ambitions and the way this could change the way we do business, it may need something a bit more kind of heavyweight. So that's where we are on those requirements. That's taken, as I said in my introduction, that's taken a bit longer to scope and specify out, partly because of the complexity of it, but also because with everyone working remotely and obviously everyone very busy, it's been harder for the people who need to specify the requirements to get involved quite at the same pace as they would have done if we were all sitting in the same office.
Because we were talking about how much face-to-face we would need and how much digital we would need, but now, of course, with the last 8 months being like it is, it's tipped it the other way now to much greater digital face-to-face, and I think the public are beginning to accept that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Councillor Levitt.
Thank you, Chairman. Question 3, thank you, Alan, for asking your question about what I was going to ask my question 3 about. So I'm on to 4 now, paragraph 5.1, application, to apps and what have you. So you say in your paragraph 5.1, we aim to buy vanilla versions of software that have been proven in other local authorities. So it's another absolutely crucial point. But what happened previously is my question.
Well, traditionally in IT, I've been in IT for a long time, so it was the fact at one stage that people used to build all their own systems. So everyone would be going out, every local authority would be building their own systems and then saying, this is just right for what we need, and this is the only way we can work. Right. And
that's going back 20 years ago, but
yeah. But the things have slowly evolved. There's been packages have come out, and what I mean by we're trying to buy vanilla is that we want to get something that is standard, that's best of breed. So, for example, BW7 that Alan mentioned before is a package that's used by I think there's something like 160 local authorities using that in various forms. So the basis being that then we can implement it and it will deliver what we need without too much adjustment. Some of you may remember that with our old Aggresso system, we had the highest number of bespoking, customizations of that Unit 4, who produced it, had ever seen. We were the leader in terms of customizations. And what we've tried to do with BW7 is get away from that so that we've just got a standard package. So when we need to upgrade, we don't need to spend £1 million re-implementing everything that we've customized in it. We can just take the package off the shelf.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, and last question, Councillor Levitt.
Question 5 had been diluted elsewhere. Question 6, it's about paragraph 9.2, your conclusion. The majority of current team has joined in the last 4 years, blah, blah. Now, I do understand, as a relatively new councillor, that we presently employ about 32 staff in ICT. My pertinent question is, will this continue beyond the year 2022-23? I entirely accept that you needed 32 to make up for all the past mistakes, but surely we'll be able to rationalise that lengthy number of staff.
Well, obviously, I'm not in control of the long-term funding, but my view would be absolutely we need that. That team is all about delivering business as usual, and actually doing all this project work is almost kind of supplementary to that. So we've had to spin quite a lot of plates in order to deliver what we have done over the last couple of years. And as we were saying earlier, with the speed of transformation and speed of technology coming in, not diminishing but accelerating, because it's like an escalator where if we don't keep walking upwards, we're going down. We need to keep up with that investment. So certainly my aim next year will be to produce a strategy for the next 4 or 5 years, which shows how we can keep developing our technology to enable our council services to improve. And the team we've got will absolutely be needed in full for that.
Great. Okay, Rob, thank you very much for that very honest answer. Thank you.
The last word will go to Councillor Heron.
Chairman, I was just going to say that I am aware of Councillor Levitt's concerns over the size of our ICT team, and he harks back to previous times when he was a councillor in another area and the size of the ICT team. But I think everyone must appreciate that the level of ICT used by local councils and relied on by local councils is just an ever-escalating form. I mean, when I first joined the council, I know it was some time ago, there wasn't quite quill pens, but it was close to that. Every member turned up with a bundle of papers. The technology within the council chamber consisted of a microphone, if you were lucky. Nowadays, everything is delivered electronically. Even for us members, everything is delivered. Every meeting is usually accompanied by some sort of presentation, some sort of electrical connection. And we all know how quickly it all goes wrong if that connection falls over and fails to be delivered. We are a far more reliant organisation on our ICT. We use it to ensure that we have a far better delivery performance and to cut costs. And the sort of other side of that is the fact that we need a larger and more efficient ICT department so that delivery is on time and reliable and consistent, because no one can cope if it isn't consistent. So thank you, and that's, I think, I accept that is a necessary cost for a council that's looking forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we've all had a very good discussion on that. So members, if you'd like to go to the recommendation, which is on page 8, number 10, 10.1 is that the panel supports the ICT strategy and budget update detailed in the report, which includes an additional spend of £21,000 on resilience and security, an estimated additional spend of £100,000 for Microsoft Teams implementation, and an estimated underspend of £147,000 for applications. Are you all in agreement with 10.1?
Agreed.
Good. No dissent there. Thank you. And 10.2, that the changes as outlined in 10.1 and the rephasing of the budget as demonstrated in Table 2 at 8.3 are reflected in Council's medium-term financial plan. So you all agreed on that?
Great.
So thank you very much for the presentation, Rob. And as with Alan's department, please go back to your department and give them our thanks for really a pretty magnificent job in spite of all the difficulties. When you're talking about the previous IT system being, at the end of its life, I would suggest it not only was at its end of its life, it was dead and buried, but it has now been resurrected. And we're looking to a bright future. So thank you very much. So members, we'll now move on to item 7, which is portfolio holders updates. If I can ask Councillor Rickman to speak first.
Thank you very much, Chairman. An excellent meeting and a long meeting, so I'll try and be brief. I would start off by saying I don't know what Jeremy Herron had for breakfast, but can I have some? Your enthusiasm is amazing, and I'm so grateful to that. And I really want to say, when Jeremy said earlier how proud he was of our members and staff, we mean it. That's really quite genuine. These are difficult times, different times than any of us who got involved in local government ever thought we'd have to work through. So as well as saying thank you, I want to say that there's so much going on, and I'm so grateful for the portfolio holders who I can trust to get on with stuff. Bob and I have had lots of internal and external meetings recently. For instance, this Friday is the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Local Government Association, where one of the biggest issues, apart from COVID and saliva testing, is the impact on the finances of local government. And I know from other meetings I've had in the last month or so, we're in quite a good place, New Forest. That's because of a long, severe hold on the finances of things as we go forward. Life is going to be difficult. The impact, you covered this morning, for instance, with 49 at Lymington. Along the time then, I was in discussions about Lymington Hospital becoming the COVID hospital for our area. Well, talk about partners working together. I don't know where maternity and all those mums and their babies would have gone otherwise. We hadn't rehearsed this before. We haven't done one of these before. So I think there's an essential thing about working together. The joined up workforce thing that was mentioned earlier, I think is such an important point. And as regards ICT, bring on Teams, because I use Teams in a lot of other places, and my goodness, it's a much better system. I think I'll shut up and answer any questions, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I don't actually have any requests to speak. So this is the second meeting running, Councillor Rickman, where you're being let off lightly. No questions.
Can I just say, I hope you might see that in a different way, but never mind. One good thing of all of us of a certain age is that I really appreciate the government and everything with Kickstart. We really need to get that going. Now the numbers within our own council is looking very optimistic through the business partnership. And I'm hoping really what 49 was talking about this morning may get some of that on the way for the next generation. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Herron, please.
Chairman, a large part of my portfolio has already been covered with our.
Excellent. So we'll move on now then to. No, go on. I'll give you a couple of minutes.
With the ICT, one of the other areas, obviously, of my responsibility is the budget and finance, and that part is such a changing place. I mean, we have managed to revise this year's budget. We've put forward our medium-term financial plan. I was looking back for a nice quiet ride as we went forward, only to go into a second lockdown, which is obviously going to impact once again on our revenue stream. And with the close down of all our leisure centres when we were just beginning to open them up. So we'd invested money in putting in the place of necessary facilities and cleaning structures and revising the strategy so that they could open. Not only we was one step into it, and we're back to being in lockdown, which again means that there's a closure down on the revenue stream on that and dealing with that. So that is a constantly changing landscape that we're living in. Fortuitously, we are, as the leader has said, in a good place to weather the storm better than an awful lot of others, and I will no doubt bring back to you a further revised budget when we see the full impact of this second lockdown and how long it's going to last. Obviously, this has had some impact on our proposals for our commercial investment. The world is changing, so the sort of investments that perhaps worked in the past may not be the same as those that work in the future. So we are looking carefully at that. We are still proceeding with a number of projects, but again, the pace has been certainly reduced as we go forward with those because of simply the logistics of the matter and what people are doing. But it is still an active and important part of what will come to be our revenue stream to support this council in the future. I know that what was the other one I was going to do? I don't know, Chairman. I think I've covered enough at this moment. If anyone has any questions, I'll take those if I've missed anything out.
Councillor Kangarani.
Thank you, Jeremy. You run out of steam eventually. Really, my question would be from Barry. In New Forest, we have got majority of the businesses are macro businesses, and are single man basically working for themselves or one or two employers. This 49 really can be supplied by the local kind of entrepreneur, or should we get other people from outside this New Forest to come and join, enroll in that scheme? And then my next question would be really is about, we know we have done very well. I mean, there's no doubt about that. What we haven't highlighted so far, where we have failed. I'd like to know for learning, where we haven't really reached target, what we aim to. Is that something you can actually expand on? Thank you.
Okay, that's a mixed bag of questions. Observations on the good things and then criticism on the things we don't know about. But hey ho, that's how it goes. I think so much will depend on partnership working, as I tried to mention earlier. Also, going forward, it's how the outside world affects what this council does within it. It's completely, to me, day by day, unknown territory. We are using the monies that are coming this way by a very generous government, I have to say. And certainly when you touched on it earlier, the new tranche of money, which is more aimed at what Alexis was talking about, which is the small self-employed, the hidden people, the little businesses at home, I actually believe those are the ones that will grow and provide a lot of jobs as well. So we're using the money that comes our way, and we'll keep on trying to balance it. If I can try and give you an example of what I was saying, you mentioned about the marshals earlier. Well, the government called them marshals. I've heard them called ambassadors, whatever. There's an immense amount of work going on in the background where we saw the high spots where there was a need for us to react. Once we've done that work, we will take it forward with that budget. And I, again, at the next cabinet, will give a COVID update as up to date as I possibly can at the beginning on all those issues.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next question is Councillor Levitt to Councillor Heron.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, Jeremy, if I can just ask, if you want to claim, I don't know, to be commercially unwise to make this answer, but my question is essentially just about the investment on commercial land just outside Ringwood Town Centre, which is mentioned in previous meetings and what have you. Have we already committed to this proposal or commercially, or are we still being required to put a deposit down or something like that?
We have purchased the commercial land at the back of the Crow development, so that is in the ownership of NFGC. We are now part of the agreement with the purchase was that the seller should create the access road up to adoption standard. So we have now worked with them, and we withheld part of the purchase price whilst that was done. That's now been completed, so we now have the access road to the commercial site developed to adoption standards, so that can now be adopted by the Highways Agency. We are now going forward with the next phase of the development, which is the design, ahead of design and build. And we are now in a process of looking at the design layout and then going forward to tender. Now, obviously, and I think this is quite sensible, we had a set layout and design that was originally intended for the area, and we just took this is one of the things that's just caused a small delay. We took a prudent step to just stop and reconsider that and say, as we look at the changing world that's being created by COVID, is that design right? Is that the right build? Because it would be pointless to build for something that was pre-COVID for an era that's post-COVID. So yes, this is where little small delays are coming forward. But no, the project will go ahead, will go forward. We will build it out. Just a slight delay whilst we review possibly what the exact layout and design and types of units that are put on there will be. But no, not commercially sensitive. We own that land now. It's NFDC's.
Right. Thank you, Jeremy, very much.
Well, I'm not sure about Councillor Kangarani. Are you trying to type a message or not? You keep popping up and disappearing. Did you want one more question to Councillor Heron before we move on?
Yeah, you don't mind if I was just trying to correct my spelling actually while I was typing.
Okay, well, a quick question then. Quick question to Councillor.
Okay, I mean, obviously the government policies change on the electric cars and petrol and diesel. Is that a relevant question? Can you have the answer now? Shall I just continue with that question?
This is a question to Councillor Heron. If he thinks
yes.
in his portfolio, he'll answer it.
He loves electric cars.
My forecast is that all this petrol station going to be changing faces and do something else, and this forecourts become available in near future or not very distant time. Could that council looking into buying these lands to build on houses?
The change in the strategy is not going to change the way of the mode of transport. People are just changing the way in which they power those. So I don't think there's going to be a massive change in land use. From a district council's point of view, I think what we do need to do is ensure that our planning department, and they are well aware of the fact that any new developments are going to require charging points put in them, and things like that. We are looking very much, I know my brother is at our car parks within the town centres, how we put charging points into those. So that, I think, is the biggest challenge to us as a council, that we put in the infrastructure that copes with this change. And as you said, bringing that forward to 2030, less 10 years away, is going to have a very significant impact on the way in which we need to evolve that infrastructure to deliver it. I mean, indeed, one of the things already Claire Upton-Brown has been talking with the Fawley Waterside delivery is that there is sufficient facilities within them to cope with things like that. So no, I don't think that I'm going to see massive land use changes that will require me to develop, but I do think that the infrastructure that we put in to cope with this, and indeed our proposals for the depot, new depot over at Hardley, have taken this into consideration for our own use, because indeed not only will it impact on the people that we serve, but it will impact on our own fleet, which is not insignificant as we look forward, because we change on a rolling programme. So very, very quickly you will see more and more of our vehicles changing from being fossil fuel powered to electric powered, and obviously when they go back to our bases, we're going to have to be able to charge and maintain and look after them. So that's how I think it will impact on us, not on the land use as such.
Okay. Thank you. Now, I don't have any more questions for Councillor Heron. Just give me an extra second. Nobody seems to be typing. Councillor Harris, but I believe he's left the meeting again, unless you're back, Councillor Harris, are you? No
I
reply.
don't think he is, no.
No. So that's the end of the portfolio holder updates. Thank you very much, Barry and Jeremy, much appreciated. We're nearing the end now. We're just moving on to item 8, which is the work programme. I don't know if anybody wants to make any comments. I will make one comment. As you know, I've been trying very hard to move forward with some sort of staff Efficiency Innovation Ideas Survey. We've made a slight progress in so much as I will be attending an employee forum on the 11th of December just to explain what we're trying to do, and I'll report back to the next corporate overview meeting. Now, is there anybody who would like to make any comment on the work programme? Or does Rebecca, Alan or Claire or Matt want to make any comment on their little sections? Silence is deafening. Okay, so we've got no urgent items left. So I'd like to thank you all for your attendance. It has been a long meeting, but I think it has been a very informative meeting, and I'm very pleased that so many of you have actually contributed to the debates. It's been very good. So I will now declare the meeting closed. Thank you and goodbye.